Kia ora everybody, Che Wilson here from Te Pai Waho, connecting to you tonight through a number of platforms. Nō reira tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou. As we wait for everybody to join on, I'll just start us off with karakia and then we'll get into things. Mai maranga wakarangona te rangi e tūnei, mai maranga wakarangona te papa e takotua ke nei. Mai are wakatupua nuku, mai are wakatupua rangi, e ue nei ki te pau o te pai waho e tūnei. Tenei te pō nau mai te ao. Turuturo i te wakamaua kia tīna, hui e taiki e. Taiki e kia tātou. Kia ora katoa tātou i roto i tēnei pō. E mi atu ana ki koutou o tira ki tātou. I ngā tini a o tango te wā. Me te mātou tonu ko tāmaki makaurau o tira ko mātou ki Waikato nei. E raru ana i tēnei iu. Ko koutou ki watu o e rā roe. Kei te taumata tuarua. Nō reira ko te manako ia e no o rāna koutou ki o koutou kāinga, e no o aumaru ana koutou ki o koutou kāinga, tēnā koutou kia ora katoa tātou. E tangi atu ana ki o tātou mate, e mi atu ana ki tātou te kaupapa tangata, tēnei te pō, nau mai te ao. Kia ora everybody. As I said earlier, Che Wilson here from Te Pai Waho, connecting to you tonight through a number of channels. And tonight's kaupapa is about Rangatahi, the place of Rangatahi, and as the Whakatauki says, ka pū te ruha, ka hao te Rangatahi. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Rangatahi because I had an awesome experience, which some of you that were watching my channel on Thursday would have seen. But also I've had some pretty cool experiences over the last couple of weeks with regard to Rangatahi, and then another one this coming weekend. So, firstly, what is Rangatahi? When I was growing up as a child, Rangatahi could be anyone up to 60 years old, and pretty much was anybody who wasn't on the pai, because it's quite a broad term. The way people use Rangatahi today is probably more tai tamariki or taiohi, are probably the more correct terms. Tai tamariki being teenagers, taiohi also being teenagers, and then Rangatahi being after that. And if you look at the term, some will say that the focusing on one and the focusing on weaving of thinking about yourself. That's the state of Rangatahi. But once you become a mātua, then you're supposed to be thinking about more than yourself. But there's a whole long kōrero which is probably better for someone else to talk about around the definition of Rangatahi. But what I wanted to do tonight was firstly to acknowledge the fact that a good half of Te Ao Māori now is in the Rangatahi and just slightly over rangatakapu bracket. You might be asking, what is rangatakapu? Takapu is the midsection of your body, and takapu or rangatakapu is a word that we've used in Whanganui for some generations now to describe the people who have become parents but still aren't making those key decisions, and usually are those who are part of the hands and feet of the tribe, doing all of the mahi to help the tribe, to help the marae function. And so I've been privileged to be part of a lot of rangatahi groups and rangatakapu groups over time, and now I'm getting old. But what I wanted to talk about is, if we just look at the numbers, a lot of tribes still put rangatahi positions in. And I think those positions are okay when it's a representative model, because the representative model often only focuses in on those who are the loudest and those who are the most present at that grouping, whether it's a marae or hapu. So having a rangatahi rep on there as well, I think is a good thing. Some marae are quite liberal and will allow rangatahi to do the mahi, but others will be too busy fighting for power and or the meeting fee. And so I think in those setups, you do need a rangatahi position. But in a democratic voting space where a number of tribes are, I don't think rangatahi should have a position, because if you only do the numbers and you engage, rangatahi could control the whole vote. And I know from experience recently in my own tribe, Te Aotearoa Nui a Pāpārangi, and our settlement entity for the Whanganui River, we've had a massive influence and engagement from rangatahi, where they've been able to utilise the power of their vote. And 3 out of the 4 that got on were all under 30. And if I look at the makeup of my board now, we've got one person who's in his late 60s. Then I'm the second oldest at 45. I'm used to being the youngest on the board, obviously getting old. And then a couple between me and 30, and then 3 30 and younger. So it's definitely changing. And one thing I love about it is they bring new energy, and there's always the debate. Oh, no good, because they just don't know things, they don't have wisdom, blah, blah, blah. When actually, my experience has been they can often ask the wisest questions, but also they bring a different way of looking at things and take us to a better place, and they care for their old people. So just wanted to share that experience, because it's a pretty good example of how influential the rangatahi vote can be. The other example is a rangatahi takeover. Shushi koe, Crystal. And the rangatahi takeover at home in Wanganui, Rangitike, South Taranaki, is that got the rangatahi now asking questions, and they asked me and Dr. Awari Jensen last week about COVID. What I loved about the rangatahi takeover is adults are, 1, often too serious, 2, boring on the socials, and then 3, we get into things so seriously that we start to talk over and past our people and past the people we're trying to connect to. And especially when we're being managed in the background by key people who are trying to make sure that we cover key messages, got to say this, got to say that, can't say this, can't say that. And all of that over managing just means that we are probably talking past and talking over the people we want to connect to the most. And what I learned from the Rangatahi takeover is that 1, they're fun. 2, they ask some really awesome questions, and they ask some really silly questions that adults wouldn't ask, but then you find out later, actually, people are asking those questions, so they're not silly questions. And I just really enjoyed the energy of the interview and where our young ones were going, because they are able to take us to a different place. And as they take us to that different place, it will help us to ensure that we're communicating better. And even though it's only one example, I'm sold. I'm sold because I know how much I've been part of the boring communications that just don't work, which is why you only get 23% turnout for a tribal vote, or 20 something percent turnout for a tribal vote. Because even though we mean well, we're trying our best, our messaging is just too boring, too stale, and we're starting to replicate councils, which is the last thing we want to replicate. Bueno, I wanted to share that because the two examples are great examples. One, where there's a democratic vote, rangatahi are able to mobilise. If rangatahi are able to mobilise themselves, then they've got the power. And you've got to work with them rather than try and fight with them. And two, getting rangatahi, and not rangatahi who are in their 20s, rangatahi who are in their teens, because they see things differently. Some of them haven't left college, and so it's still raw, it's still fresh, and it's beautiful. And that leads me to the final part of the kōrero, ka pū te ruha, ka hao te rangatahi. And as one of the old koros used to say, ka pū te ruha, ka taka ngā rao. Which was basically a dig because he was feeling that he was being left out. Now, this saying, ka pū te ruha, is all about when one net is overused and getting old, you bring in a new net. What's important, though, is that you're not going to throw the net out. You're not going to throw or kick the old people to touch. Instead, you work with the others, whether it's the kaumatas, kuia and koroeke, or other groupings. You work with them. And in working with them, we take everybody on the journey. And one thing I like about rangatahi is that they don't hold on to rubbish that my generation and older hold on to. And I think we could learn something from that. And part of it is to do with the whole everything is so instant, everything is so quick. And yet it's easy to forget things, but in the same breath, sometimes we hold on too long, which takes us to a bad energy, a bad space, and we need to let go of that. So ka te ake, just a short kōrero tonight. As I said, I'll be sharing going forward things that happen in my week and the learning that I get from those things, because as my cousin Piri said to me, she knew that I'd be excited about joining a team of young ones because I just have so much fun. And I'm looking forward to the Tues kaupapa this weekend, our wānanga on the Zoom. We will be connecting to a group of rangatahi as well. Ka te ake te iwi. I'm mindful, just seeing some comments there, that based on the current system, you're not allowed, rangatahi aren't allowed to vote on things. But this is one thing I know. When you're in a hui, I always look out for not only body language, but the behaviour of our tamariki and those people that have taonga, people who might be Asperger's or on the spectrum. I look out for everybody, because if a child was to say something and it's profound, I've been taught that you stop and you listen to that baby, you listen to that mokopuna. And so even though they're not allowed to vote in a Western context, hopefully we're still running our hui where we take heed of what our rangatahi and what our babies are saying, because they will often, in my experience, change a hui and also change a meeting if they say something that is profound and or prophetic. Ka te ake, e me I kauatu ana, kia wakaere ake ngā kupu, ki te tā nui o rangi nui e tūnei, au me ui e tāi ki e tū e te wetu marama. Kia ora tātou.